If you ever thought Walmart, Costco, or Target were America's retail fortresses that could never fall, then maybe the retail industry started brainwashing you a little too early. In 2026, a wave of major chains is closing stores, scaling back, or pulling out of the very communities that helped them build entire empires. These aren't obscure names. They're brands that have lived in the memories of generations of Americans. Don't be so quick to blame everything on Amazon. Online shopping is only part of the story. When pharmacies, grocery stores, convenience stores, and fast food chains all disappear, the issue is no longer just where Americans shop. It shows that life is getting harder, people are spending less, and they're slowly losing the places that once made life feel stable. In this video, we're going to look at 10 names that are shrinking across America, and the truth behind it may be scarier than the locked doors themselves. And by the end, we'll know who those decisions are really protecting. Number 10, Best Buy. I believe almost everyone in America has heard of Best Buy. To me, it's not just an electronics store, it's a whole piece of my childhood, and maybe yours too. Back then, all it took was walking through those blue doors to feel like you were looking at the future. A whole wall of glowing televisions, rows of brand new computers, game consoles, phones, and all kinds of gadgets that made us happy just to look at when we were kids. When the family bought its first computer or moved up to a bigger television, it felt like an event. But Best Buy doesn't feel that way anymore. Customers walk in, find products on their own, pull out their phones to compare prices, and then stand around waiting for an employee to help. Best Buy pays the rent, keeps dozens of televisions running, and puts products on display so customers can try them. Then those customers can go home and buy the same thing from another website. The modern economy is amazing. One company pays for customers to see the product, and another company gets the money.
So this is a new one. I'm in Best Buy buying a microphone, partly for my TikTok videos, partly for something for work tomorrow. And they've changed things in a way that I don't understand how Best Buy thinks this is either both feasible or sustainable. Remember how when you buy something, you get a 30-day return window, it breaks, you don't like it, etc. You can return it within 30 days and get your money back. Best Buy has shortened that to 2 weeks, unless you sign up for their paid annual membership. I am not making this up. Brick and mortar stores are now microtransacting the hell out of us. Basically, for $50 a year, I would have gotten $30 off of this device, and I would have had 60 days to return it, and I wouldn't have needed my receipt. Now, they told me I need to keep my receipt if I want to return it, and I only have 2 weeks to do so.
The man in the clip finds out that the standard return window for most products is only 15 days. To stretch it to 60 days, customers have to buy a Plus or Total membership. Best Buy still lists this policy on its official website. I get that Best Buy wants to sell memberships. What company doesn't like customers paying every year? But honestly, let's ask this. Is a reasonable amount of time to test an expensive electronic device a new perk or an old service that got carved out and sold back to us?
But long story short, I ordered a laptop from Best Buy, had it shipped to my house because they were sold out in store, and the box showed up to my house empty from FedEx. So a few things that I didn't address in the first video and a few things that have happened since then. Initially Tuesday, I filed a dispute with FedEx and with Best Buy. I did wake up to an email this morning from FedEx that I'll put right here. So they denied my claim, and basically their contract with Best Buy is really interesting. It means that FedEx isn't liable for any lost, damage, or stolen packages. And if I was Best Buy, I would just negotiate a better contract than that. Number 2 is just that I haven't heard anything from Best Buy.
So what do we have here? I'm afraid things seem to be getting worse. This customer says she ordered a MacBook but received a package with no computer inside. She contacted the shipping company, the call center, and then the store, but each side kept sending her back to the others. I don't know where the computer disappeared. One video isn't enough to determine who was at fault, but the customer gave Best Buy her money. And when something goes wrong, she doesn't care about the responsibility chart between the warehouse, the shipping company, and the call center. She just needs someone to step up and fix it. Best Buy isn't bankrupt. Sales in the latest quarter actually went up. But if there's less advice service gets put behind a paid membership and customers are still left to fend for themselves when something goes wrong, what reason do they have to come into the store? Best Buy is still alive. But the Best Buy Americans once loved is slowly turning into a pickup point with a few walls of television still glowing. The next name ran out of time to change. Number 9, Walmart. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say Walmart is the most controversial retail chain in America right now. People complain about the prices, the quality, and the service, then come back on the weekend with a cart full of stuff. It's a pretty strange relationship. We're getting more wary of Walmart, but a lot of families also don't know where they would shop without it. In the 1990s and the early 2000s, Walmart's promise was easy to understand. Low prices every day. You walked in, bought groceries, clothes, and school supplies, then went home. There was no need to take pictures of price tags or check your receipt like you were auditing a corporation. worth hundreds of billions of dollars. But that low price promise increasingly comes with a condition. Customers have to double-check everything.
Okay, if you're here to tell me not to shop at Walmart, please don't, because I'm very delicate today and I can't handle a whole lot. I'm just trying to tell this story so that other people are aware, okay? This is a multi-part series, so if you really need to see how I am, go back and look at the other video. Okay. So I'm at the register, and I chose to go through not one of the little square ones where it's the self-checkout, like you take 6 things. It's the one that's got the conveyor belt self-checkout. So like I have space, I'm not bothering anybody. Boop, $18.98. And I'm like, no, it's not. And so I stop, pull my phone out, scan the tag. Now, standing at the register, $18.98. No. And the thing says only sold online for $18.98. And this is the same exact shoe that when I scanned it in the back of the store 20 minutes ago, it was $3.
The woman in the clip finds a pair of children's shoes marked down from $18.98 to $3, but at checkout, the item rings up at full price. She has to show the photo, find an employee, and wait for a manager to sort it out before the store accepts the lower price. A $3 pair of shoes sounds like a bargain, but once you add the weight, the frustration, and the effort it takes to argue that discount no longer looks as good as it did on the sign. In the modern American economy, sometimes getting the right price means the customer has to become a detective too. And the story gets even more frustrating when food is involved.
Walmart. That don't weigh no 4.66 pounds. We'll use the scale. $2.37 pounds. They're ripping people straight, ripping people off. I'm going through every single one of these. And scammer.
The package of meat in the clip is labeled as weighing 4.66 pounds and priced at $19.20. But when it's placed on a scale right there in the store, it shows only about 2.37 pounds. The manufacturer later said some products had an error on the weight label. The bigger issue isn't just one package of meat with the wrong label. Walmart built an entire empire on the promise of helping shoppers save money. But when customers have to carry food over to the produce section and weigh it again themselves, that promise starts losing its value. And here's the bigger picture. Americans haven't stopped shopping. Retail sales in June 2026 were still 6.7% higher than a year earlier, but that number doesn't remove the effect of prices. Over the same period, grocery prices rose 2.7%, while energy prices jumped 15.7%. In other words, more money going through the checkout doesn't mean more goods going home. Walmart isn't weakening either. Comparable sales in the United States rose 4.3% in the quarter ending April of 2026. But that may point to a less cheerful reality. When budgets get squeezed, people consolidate more of their shopping at the place that they see as cheapest. And this isn't the only name standing at the edge of the cliff. Number 8, Bed Bath & Beyond. There was a time when Bed Bath & Beyond felt almost magical. Endless aisles of bedding towels, kitchen tools, and dorm room supplies. Every August, families brought their kids here to get ready for college. Couples made wedding registries here. And of course, Americans held on to Bed Bath & Beyond's 20% coupons longer than some important papers in the house. But then the store started to change. The stores were still huge, the rent still had to be paid, and the lights still had to stay on, but customers could no longer find the brands they were used to buying. Management pushed private label merchandise and cut back on national brands. By the time the company realized customers didn't want that change and tried to bring familiar brands back too much money, time and trust were already gone. And this is the kind of spiral very few retailers escape. Customers came in but couldn't find what they needed. Sales fell. The company didn't have enough money to restock. Shelves started going empty. Customers saw the empty shelves and came back even less. Meanwhile, Amazon, Target, and Walmart sold almost the same products without making customers walk through a store at the size of an airport just to find a towel. In April 2023, Bed Bath & Beyond filed for bankruptcy and began liquidating all 360 remaining stores. But here's the detail that makes the story more interesting. Overstock later paid about $21.5 million to buy the brand name, intellectual property, and online platform. They didn't buy the stores, they didn't buy the inventory, and they didn't rescue the old business. Put simply, they bought the Bed Bath & Beyond sign after the house behind it had already been torn down. In 2026, that sign's going back up. In May, the first combined Bed Bath & Beyond and the Container Store location opened in Fort Worth, Texas. The company plans to bring Bed Bath & Beyond products into 98. The Container. Store locations bring back the famous towel wall display beds and even accept those old 20% coupons. There's a little irony here. The Container Store also filed for bankruptcy in late 2024. So in the modern American economy, a brand that once went bankrupt is coming back inside a chain that also just came through bankruptcy. And both sides are calling that the future of retail. The latest numbers are mixed too. In the second quarter of 2026, revenue rose 28%, active customers reached 6.4 million, and delivered orders jumped. But the company still posted a net loss of $39 million, more than double the loss from the same period a year earlier. Revenue is coming back, customers are coming back, stores are coming back too. Profit is the only thing that still hasn't found its way home. Bed Bath & Beyond may be coming back to life. Or maybe people are just testing how much American nostalgia is still worth. Because a name can be bought back, an old coupon can be printed again. But the feeling customers once had when they walked into the store that isn't easy to buy with money. And the next name will prove the opposite. A company doesn't have to go bankrupt to decide that some communities are no longer worth staying in. Number 7, Family Dollar. Walmart is big enough to live with lost trust. Family Dollar depends on customers who don't have much money left to spend, and that's when things start getting harder. Family Dollar never had to look as nice as Target or be as big as Walmart. Its promise was much simpler. A store close to home, a few essentials, and prices low enough to help a family make it to the weekend. But the word dollar on the sign increasingly no longer guarantees that customers are actually saving money. Many products come in smaller packages. The price of each item may be low, but per ounce per roll or per use, customers sometimes pay more than they would at Walmart or Aldi. In other words, Family Dollar sells to people who can't afford the larger package, and then those same people end up paying more in the long run. Apparently, poverty comes with its own service fee. The atmosphere in many struggling stores doesn't help either. There are too few employees, boxes sit in the aisles, shelves have empty spots, and one person has to run the register stock shelves and handle every problem in the store. Customers walk in hoping to save time, but sometimes they have to find their own way through boxes that haven't even been opened yet. Then came something much more serious. Family Dollar once pleaded guilty over storing food, drugs, and consumer products in unsanitary conditions at a distribution center with a rodent infestation. The company had to pay more than $41 million in penalties. Customers may put up with an old store, but when the story shifts from messy shelves to a warehouse with rats, the words low price start taking on a meaning nobody wants. Dollar Tree once spent more than $8 billion to buy Family Dollar, then sold it for about $1 billion. Nearly 1,000 of those underperforming stores were identified for closure or elimination. Family Dollar isn't gone. It's shrinking, holding on to the places that still make money and leaving the weakest communities. Family Dollar struggles while selling things people still have to buy. Big Lots is even more fragile because it sells things people can decide not to buy. Number 6, Big Lots. Family Dollar struggles while selling things people still have to buy. Big Lots is even more fragile because it depends on things customers can look at, like and then decide to leave on the shelf. Back in the day, walking into Big Lots felt like going on a treasure hunt. You might not find what you came in for, but you would often leave with a discounted chair, a few decorations, or a familiar product that was so cheap you had to check whether you had read the price wrong. That feeling was what kept customers coming back. But over time, Big Lots started looking more like a mid-range furniture store than a place to hunt for close-out deals. Too many sofas, tables, chairs, and large household items, things people do not buy every week and may only buy once every few years. Then the economy started squeezing customers' wallets. When rent, food, insurance, and gas all go up, it becomes very easy to put off buying a new sofa. Big Lots customers still want a nicer room. They just want to keep the lights on and their car insurance active even more. But the problem was not just the customers. A discount store can survive unattractive lighting, slightly messy shelves, and an old building. What it cannot survive is the feeling that it is not cheap anymore. Big Lots got stuck in the middle, not essential like Walmart, not surprising enough to be a treasure hunting destination, and not specialized enough to win in furniture. In September 2024, the company filed for bankruptcy. By December, the deal to sell the business fell apart, and Big Lots began liquidating all of its remaining stores. A chain built around close-out merchandise finally had to liquidate itself. The American economy sometimes has a pretty cruel sense of humor. Then a last-minute deal appeared. The brand was saved, but most of the system was not. From nearly 1,400 locations, the new version kept only about 219 stores in 15 states. Big Lots is not completely dead. But what came back is only a smaller version built from whatever was left. Big Lots nearly disappeared because its oversized stores no longer had enough customers. Subway has the opposite problem, and Too many stores competing for a limited number of customers. Number 5, Subway. Big Lots nearly disappeared because its oversized stores no longer had enough customers. Subway has a much stranger problem it is in too many places. There was a time when you could barely drive through an American town without seeing a Subway. There was one inside a gas station, another one was right across the street. Drive a few more miles and there was a good chance you would see another Subway. Making franchises relatively easy to open helped the brand cover America, but it also forced many store owners to compete with another Subway owner. In 2015, Subway had more than 27,000 locations in the United States. By the end of 2025, that number had fallen to about 18,773. In 2025 alone, the system lost a net 729 stores, marking its 10th straight year decline. This is no longer about a few locations that picked the wrong building. This is a network correcting the damage caused by years of overexpansion. The problem comes down to the franchisee's math. The corporation owns the brand, while the local store owner has to pay rent wages, ingredient costs, system fees, and remodeling expenses. When 2 Subway stores are too close together, the customers get split in half, but each store's bills do not split themselves in half. Then the promise of value started getting weaker, too. Americans once remembered Subway for the $5 foot long. Now a sandwich can make customers think as carefully as if they were ordering at a sit-down restaurant. Subway has repeatedly brought back the $6.99 deal, and in 2026, it even launched its first value menu with 15 items under $5. That shows the company understands exactly what customers are missing, the feeling that Subway is still worth the money. The irony is that in 2025, the parent company's net profit rose sharply while franchise revenue fell and hundreds of stores continued to disappear. The corporation may become leaner while the local owner is left holding the keys to a store that does not have enough customers. Subway is not disappearing. It is shrinking to a size the market can actually support. And while one brand failed because it built too many locations, Macy's will show how the same thing happened to the entire American mall system. Number 4, Macy's. For many American families, Macy's was never just a place to buy clothes. It was the smell of perfume on the first floor, Christmas decorations, back to school shopping trips, and gifts picked out at the last minute. You might not buy anything, but as long as Macy's still had its lights on, the mall still felt alive. That feeling is disappearing. In 2024, Macy's announced plans to close about 150 underperforming stores and focus its money on roughly 350 locations it planned to keep. The company confirmed that 66 stores would close in the 2025 round, then removed another 14 locations in 2026. The reason is pretty simple. Those multi-story stores cost a lot to operate, while middle-class customers are becoming much more careful about non-essential purchases. Walmart and discount chains have taken the lower price business, while higher-end shoppers are leaning toward more luxurious brands. Macy's is stuck right in the middle, the place that used to be the safest position in American retail, and is now the hardest place to survive. What is worth noting is that Macy's has not collapsed. In the first quarter of 2026, comparable sales for the brand actually rose 1.6%, while the group of 200 stores receiving new investment rose 2.4%. In other words, the current strategy is to close the weak part so the stronger stores have a better chance of surviving. But for local communities, the math is not as painless as it looks on a report. Macy's closes, foot traffic falls. Smaller stores sell less. Empty spaces appear, followed by more signs advertising space for rent. A mall rarely dies overnight. It goes dark one light at a time. Macy's is shrinking to survive. The next name went bankrupt twice and still could not save itself. Rite Aid. Number 3, Rite Aid. We have not forgotten the shocking event in May 2025 when Rite Aid filed for bankruptcy for the second time with more than $2 billion in debt and about 1,200 stores. The company admitted that its retail business had become so weak it could not generate enough cash to restock the shelves. That was when the collapse became visible right in front of customers. The shelves got emptier and emptier. Gift cards and rewards programs were discontinued. Prescription records were sold to CVS, Walgreens, Kroger, and other competitors. By October 2025, every Rite Aid store had closed. Rite Aid did not lack customers who needed medicine. It lacked the ability to make enough profit from serving those customers. Shrinking prescription margins, debt competition, and opioid lawsuits all pulled a pharmacy chain that had been around for more than 6 decades down to the bottom. And when Rite Aid disappeared, older people could not simply decide to stop buying medicine. They had to find a new pharmacy, travel farther, and get used to a different system. Rite Aid died because it no longer had enough strength to survive. Walgreens is more worrying and still has strength, but it is actively deciding which places get to stay. Number 2, Walgreens. The scariest thing is not a pharmacy going bankrupt. It is a pharmacy that is still doing fine, then looks at a map and decides which neighborhoods are no longer worth serving. That is exactly the story of Walgreens. In 2024, Walgreens announced plans to eliminate about 1,200 stores over 3 years. The reason was not just that customers were buying less shampoo or fewer snacks. Prescription reimbursements were being squeezed, labor costs were rising, and many locations were no longer making enough profit. On paper, this is called optimizing the store network, but in everyday terms, a pharmacy closing is not the same as a clothing store closing for older people. Prescriptions can be transferred, but the patient's legs, car, and time do not get transferred with them. In 2025, Walgreens was acquired by Sycamore Partners and taken off the stock market. By 2026, more than 600 additional jobs were cut, including positions in Illinois and at a distribution center in Texas. Walgreens has not collapsed. It is shrinking to make the cost sheet healthier, but every store that disappears makes the community a little weaker. And the final name will show that even convenience is no longer enough to keep every door open and every light on. Malls are slowly disappearing. Fast food is getting more expensive. Grocery stores and supermarkets are shrinking too. But Americans still had one thing they once believed would never disappear: convenience. Number 1, 7-Eleven. A place that was always open and always lit up and always there at midnight. At least that is what Americans used to think. There's one small thing Americans became so used to that they took it for granted: the lights at 7-Eleven would always be on. Whether it was 2 in the morning after night shift, whether you were driving across state lines, or whether your child suddenly came down with a fever in the middle of the night and needed fever medicine, people always had the feeling that somewhere nearby there would be a store open. That was not just convenience. It was the feeling that America was always running. And now that feeling's slowly disappearing. 7-Eleven is expected to close about 645 locations across North America. But what is more noticeable than the number of stores closing is that many locations are starting to cut their overnight hours. The open 24 hours sign used to be a symbol of American convenience culture. Now in many places it is quietly disappearing from storefronts. It may sound a little cinematic, but when you look around many American cities today, it is hard to deny it. So what is causing even a business model that seemed unbeatable to start shrinking? Overnight labor costs have gone up significantly. Insurance costs have gone up. Security costs have gone up. Losses from theft are also getting larger. In some urban areas, overnight revenue is no longer enough to justify staying open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It sounds like a normal business calculation, but the psychological effect is huge. That is because 7-Eleven never sold anything especially unique. Its coffee was not the best. Its hot dogs were not fine dining. People went there for a different reason: reliability. You did not have to like 7-Eleven, you just had to know it was always there. And when even that small feeling of stability starts to shake, people feel even more clearly that America is changing in a way that is very hard to name. Then there is another image showing up more, and more often. Security glass locked merchandise and employees standing behind protective glass at midnight. Convenience stores are slowly becoming less convenient. It sounds ironic, but that is exactly the truth. Many older Americans feel this change especially clearly because they lived through a time when 24-hour America was almost part of the national identity. A country that was always moving, always working, and always had somewhere open. Now many towns are starting to go dark earlier, become quieter, and strangely enough feel less safe too. This is not a spectacular Hollywood-style collapse. It feels more like the small lights of everyday life are slowly going out one by one. And then we come to the final group of retailers. These are not just brands that are shrinking. These are business models that are starting to completely fall apart from the inside. There is a phrase American retail executives love to use whenever they close a large number of locations: we are optimizing our store network. It sounds very corporate, very calm, and very strategic, but in everyday language it means the math no longer works. These 10 names are not disappearing because Americans suddenly stopped needing medicine food, low-price goods, or a store close to home. The demand is still there. What is disappearing is the ability to keep those locations running in an economy where rent, labor debt, and operating costs are all rising faster than the purchasing power of many families. And the consequences do not stop with financial reports. One store closing can take away jobs, tax revenue, essential services, and even the familiar feeling of a neighborhood. For older people, it may mean traveling farther to pick up medicine. For workers, it means one more place that was hiring is gone. This is not just a retail crisis. It is the way American life is being reduced and rearranged. The question now is no longer which chain will close next, but how far from your home the next set of lights will go out. Which store has disappeared where you live, and what did your community lose afterward?